If you've never tracked your finances before or are just looking for a better option, I'm going to walk you through the 4 files that could completely change your life. And I say that truthfully because the people that have used these files while working with me have found an extra $205 a month in their budget that they've applied towards their debt, which have saved them an average of $3,945 worth of interest and allowing them to become debt-free 29 months earlier. Guys, these are the averages. If that interests you, make sure to download the Personal Finance Level Up Kit down in the description of this video. It includes a budget template, debt payment calculator, emergency fund calculator, and a net worth tracker. I've got timestamps so you can just kind of jump around to the files. Let's get into it. All right, so here's the budget template. The first thing you're going to want to do is make a copy for yourself because you're not going to be able to edit this version. So there's a couple ways to do that. We're going to go up to File. We're going to click Make a Copy. And this is making a copy into your Google Drive. So if you don't know if you have one, if you have a Gmail account, you have a Google Drive. So click on the folder here and you click My Drive, select, and then you make a copy. The next way, you could go up here and you could download and select the option of Excel or the CSV, basically any sort of spreadsheet option you're going to want to select, or you can go to email this file, and again, you can send it to yourself, and the file type, just make sure it's in a spreadsheet format. If you're new to me, my name's Chris. I've been an accountant for 10 years, and I created this just for you, and I was trying to find the easiest, most simplest way to create a budget, and we're gonna get into the strategy a little later on, but first, we have to talk about the step that you need to do before doing a budget, which is called the 3-month look back. Now, I'm recording this video in September. So what I want you to do is we're going to look at variable expenses for the months of June, July, and August, the 3 months prior to September. Variable expenses, I want you to think of those as things like groceries, gas, utilities, things that you need to live and do your day-to-day, but the expense amount changes and fluctuates every single month. And the reason why this is so important, especially if you've never budgeted before, is you're probably guesstimating how much you're spending on all these things, but without actually seeing it in person, you're probably underestimating it. And then at the end of the month, you're wondering where all your money is going. Well, it's probably on this sheet, okay? So we need to do this process first. And the reason why we don't look at fixed expenses prior is because they shouldn't be changing very frequently. Think about your mortgage or your rent. How often are those going to be changing? Not very often. So we're going to know the amount that we need to budget for those, but these, it's more of a guesstimation until we actually put the data in. So here's what's going to happen. On this spreadsheet, so anything that's colored this yellowy orange color, you can input items into, okay? So these categories are at your disposal. Whatever you want to put there is totally up to you. This is your budget template, okay? So feel free to play around with these. There's about 20 different categories that you can play from. I just put some of these here, figuring that these would be some of the more popular variable expense items. But again, feel free to customize this to how you see fit. And I'm not going to lie to you, this part can be a little tedious, okay? So if someone were to look at this and tell you it's going to be easy, it's not, because here's what's going to happen. If you use a debit card or a credit card, you're going to want to look at the transactions for those last 3 months and then put all of the expenses into one of these expense category buckets. And this is so important that as we go through this, I hope you see it, but we need actual numbers here, okay? Because the reason why you probably think you need to budget is because you feel like you don't have enough money at the end of the month. And this exercise is going to help you, I promise. So before I recorded, I kind of input certain numbers here, and by the power of technology, ta-da, so I just entered some random numbers here. And just to be clear for you, we want to see actual numbers in here. So there's no way that your groceries are perfectly $500, $650 in the last 3 months, right? So we want actual numbers here. These look estimated, but I'm just doing this for an example. So once we put in the 3 months here, so let's look at groceries. The average is $550. And then we see here all the other expense categories that we filled out. The one misconception that people have about budgeting is that budgeting is restrictive. I think once people hear the word budget, they think, oh my God, I have to restrict everything. I have to lower my lifestyle. I have to spend less. I have to cut. And I don't want you to think like that. I want you to think of creating your budget as being more intentional with where your money's going, okay? And I hope this exercise really helps you, A, show you where your money has been going, and then B, the opportunity to try and shift that mindset, okay? So this exercise is, am I putting the money towards a financial goal that's important to me or a life goal that's important to me. And here's how we can do that. So we see the average here, again, of all the expense categories. Now in this new section over here, it's called New Budget with Adjustments. Now, this is going to be our new budgeted amount for each of the expense categories. And then this is going to flow nicely into our actual budget spreadsheet, which we're going to get to in a minute. Again, this is a yellowy orange column here. This is where you're going to enter what your new budgeted amount is. Now, I want to focus on two of these expense categories just to show you how all this is working. Again, I don't want you to think of budget as cutting, but let's use groceries as an example. Let's say, for example, you exclusively shop at Whole Foods, known to be a little pricier, right? If you're trying to reach a financial goal, maybe you're thinking, how can I alter what I'm doing in this expense category to maybe reduce it? Or in some cases, we might want to increase it, right? Which we'll get to in a second. But let's say for groceries, you know what? I don't need to shop at Whole Foods every week. I can go to the discount grocery store or, a step up from the discount grocery store. And I think I can reasonably save $50 a month just to start, and we can see what happens. So let's put in $500. So now you'll see that in the column I, this is monthly savings. So what this is doing is taking your average actual of June, July, August, and it's subtracting your new budget amount. And this is saying that you have a new monthly savings of $50 because you've reduced your average spend on groceries by $50, which is great. This next piece over here is probably the most important piece. And I put this in here because I think this will help you understand where you want your money to go and take action on this step. Because it's easy just to say, oh yeah, groceries seems high, I'm gonna try to just save money on it. No, I want you to put down an action item that you are going to be taking and that you can feel accountable for and that you can stay consistent with. So we talked about going to a cheaper grocery store. So we're just going to do cheaper store, right? That's the action that you're going to take to make this happen. Now, let's look at another example. Again, I want you to think of this strategy as being intentional with where your money is going towards improving a financial goal or improving your life goal. So let's look at health and fitness, right? A lot of people, like to work out. They like to go to the gym, whatever. So let's say this is an expense that normally fluctuates for you. I have $30 for each of the months, but let's just say it fluctuates for you a little bit because you go to a gym, maybe you take some extra classes, and maybe you're considering like extra things on top of what you normally do, whatever the thing is. But let's go through this example. So after you've seen where all your money's going, you're like, you know what? My health and fitness is actually so important to me that I think I need to increase how much I'm spending in my health and fitness. So instead of the $30 a month, I think I need to take a few more classes every month, and I think I need to spend $60 a month. That's great. And now you can see this monthly savings here. It's actually negative. But again, we're being intentional with where our money is going to what our priorities are. So this is okay that it's negative because it's really, really important to you. So the action that you're going to be taking to reduce your budget here is we're going to be doing more classes, right? Whatever the thing is. That was just two categories. So again, by the power of technology, I am going to enter the rest of these. There we go. So now we've entered all of our new budget amounts. And you can see here, there's some monthly savings. There's some stuff that we're losing out on, but here's where this process is so powerful. Down here, it's totaling everything for us, right? So the monthly savings totaled up of just these expense categories is $131. That's pretty cool, right? And then you look down here, annualized savings. So $131 times 12. And now you've potentially saved $1,500 because of the actions that you've taken with this exercise and the actions that you've put in here. And this is so powerful because now what could you do with $1,580? Probably a lot. Could it help you pay down some debt? Could it help you invest in your retirement? Could it help invest in your kids' education? Whatever the thing is, it's really powerful. Now, I said before, I don't want you to think of budget as being restrictive, but the obvious thing and the elephant in the room is the less you spend on stuff, the more you can put towards a financial goal. So the game here could be, okay, let's try this out for a couple months, but what if I really ratchet it up and really just try to cut for a couple months and just see what could happen to this number, right? And I'm not going to go through that example, but you can get the idea of okay, and you just turn it into a game, and it's how badly do I want the goal and how badly do I want to live a happy life? And it's a balance, right? You're never going to see me tell you how to spend your money or where to spend your money. I just want you to see it, and I want you to understand where your money's going and if it aligns with your financial goals and your life goals, okay? So that is the 3-month look back tab. Now let's go over to the monthly budget tab. Now, maybe at first this looks a little intimidating, so I'm gonna go section by section, but I did wanna point out that the variable expenses carried over, okay? So everything that we entered into our 3-month look back and the new budget amount carried over, which is cool. So now we don't have to worry about variable expenses. That's why we did that exercise. Because if you had just started your budget and you made a guess on how much you spend on groceries or gas, you're probably gonna way underestimate it, okay? So let's go over each section, and I really wanna start in this top area here, which is more of the summary section. So, total budget. This is looking at the income that you bring in every single month, the income that you expect to bring in every single month. So let's say, for example, you have 2 paychecks every month. You have paycheck 1, paycheck 2, and your expected amount, we'll just say it's $2,500, just to make the numbers nice and round. You can see that the total budget changed to $5,000, and that makes sense because the money that's coming in is our budget, right? Like we have no other money to pull from, right? So we need to use the money that's coming in. This budget template is using the zero-based budgeting strategy, which means that every dollar that comes in, it has a place to go and there's an assigned spot for that dollar. So it comes in, you know exactly where all your money's going because of this budget template. And at the end of the month, you will have spent $5,000. Now, if you're sitting there thinking, well, I'm gonna bring home $5,000 and I'm gonna have no money at the end of the month, technically, yes, but the goal is, and we're going to go through this in each section and you'll start to see, the goal is hopefully you have extra money at the end of the month from your budget that you can then put towards a financial goal. Again, paying down debt, building an emergency fund, investing for your retirement. So that's the total budget section. This remaining to budget section is looking at the total budget, so our income, right, the $5,000, and it's subtracting everything that we've budgeted so far. Now you'll remember that the variable expenses came over and that totaled $1,000. So far what this is doing is it's taking our $5,000 expected income minus the variable expenses. So we have $4,000 left to budget. The reason why this cell is red is because the goal of this section is to get this to exactly $0. And once you get it to $0, that means it's a perfect budget. So just to show you what that would look like, if I were to put $4,000 in a random budget cell, boom, it turns to 0 and it turns green, which is good. Green is good, okay? So I'm going to get rid of that for now. The leftover money, now this is looking at the money that we actually spent. So again, this is looking at our budget, our income coming in, so $5,000, and it's subtracting the actual amount of money that we've paid throughout the month. Now, we obviously haven't paid anything yet. All the actuals are 0, so let's just put 5,000 in here just to show you. And again, we want this to go to 0. Green is good. The whole point is to have all of our money go somewhere. And ideally, a lot of that should be going towards a financial goal. So let's just delete that. And you'll notice that this actual spend here was sort of tied to the leftover money. So actually, I'll just enter that back in. You can see actual spend, $5,000, which is great. Now, how does this turn red? What happens if this is bad? Well, if we spend more than our budget, so if we do $5,001, bad, red. And you can also see this leftover money, and now we're in the negative because we spent more than our budget, okay? So this is a quick little tool to help show you how much you're budgeting, how much you're spending, and hopefully the colors and the quick, big summary numbers help you out. These two sections, total financial goal and total paid to debt, these are sections where we're going to be totaling the actual amount of money that you put towards a financial goal. Now, financial goals, again, we've been mentioning them, but emergency fund, child education, retirement, etc. This field is completely available for you to enter whatever you want to enter, okay? So I just entered a few generic things in here, but feel free to change this as you see fit. So again, if we enter something here, this is gonna just show us how much are we putting towards a financial goal, which is awesome. The same thing applies to this total debt section, okay? So again, this section, completely customizable, however you wanna do it, instead of credit card 1 if you want to put Amex and then, I don't know, Discover or whatever. And again, this is just going to sum up the actual that we spent, okay, which is great. It just gives a snapshot of how much we're putting towards our financial goals and how much we're putting towards paying down debt. All right, so let's start actually filling this out and you can sort of see how all of this is going to start flowing. So I actually just entered some fixed items for you. Again, we're just making some assumptions here. So these categories are completely customizable for you. I'm just, again, putting some generic categories in here. Feel free to change them as you see fit. So let's assume your fixed expenses total $3,170. Now, you'll see that this remaining to budget has changed, and now we have $830 left over to budget. And let's assume that this covers all of our living expenses, okay? So now we have $830 that we have to play around with in our budget, and this is where the fun starts, okay? This is where we need to start figuring out where our extra money can actually go. So let's say that you have some debt, so you've been paying off, $100 on a credit card here, you've got a $400 car loan, and a student loan you've been paying, I don't know, $100 to, okay? So we're going to be putting these budgeted amounts for our debt, because the debt that you pay is an expense for you, right? It might suck to be paying down the debt, but the truth is it's a payment that you're making. It's an expense. It's going out of your bank account. So we do need to account for it, and we want it to be included in our total budget, because the whole point of this is to eventually get to a point where your financial goals are turned into more of an expense for you, where it's an automated payment to an investment or an automated payment to a debt. And it's just every single month you're making these payments, and it's not a last minute thought or at the end of the month you're like, oh, I have money left over, let me put it towards debt. It's no, we need to focus on the financial goals. That's how you're going to get ahead, especially if you have debt. You have to get rid of the debt, okay? But if you want to get ahead, we have to really be aggressive towards reaching financial goals and putting money towards that every single month. So now we have $230 left. And again, this is all about strategy. This is about what's most important to you. So if you feel like you're living paycheck to paycheck, I would recommend setting up some sort of emergency fund, right? So let's just say you put $150 here this month, and for your retirement, this month you just put $80, okay? Now you'll see that the remaining to budget is $0, which is great. That's exactly what we wanted. So now let's fill out some of the actual money that we're actually paying. And the best way to go about doing this, especially if you're in the beginning, is probably weekly, okay? Because if you do this at the end of the month, it's gonna be really hard. It's gonna be a lot harder to track everything. And after you've gone through the 3-month look back, you're not going to want to go through another full month again. So it might be easier to sit down every week, figure out, a day and a time where you can just look at the expenses that you did during the week, enter them in, update them here. So let's just assume our fixed expenses, what we budgeted for, is exactly the amount. So we're just going to paste these really quickly. Okay, so debts, we're going to do this. We're going to assume that we made payments to our debts. Okay, yep, we're contributing to our financial goals here, which is great. And let's just go down some variable expenses here. We're going to enter these in quickly. Now let's assume you go 1 month and you're like, no gifts, no dining out, no activities. So now you're in a situation where, okay, we budgeted for this $100, but we actually didn't spend $100. And now it's, the end of September, right? This is when I'm recording. The end of the month, we have $100 extra. So you can do a lot of things with it. You can buy something stupid with it off of, the TikTok store or Amazon or something like that. Or you can put it towards a financial goal. Now, again, I don't tell people what to do, but this is where it comes in. Again, what's your strategy? What's your goal? What are you trying to accomplish? All right, so let's just say you decided to put the $100 extra towards your credit card debt, okay? So now look at this. We have $0 left to budget. We have $0 left to spend, and our actual spend equals exactly our budget. Now, let's go back to the income real quick, because I know we're going to get some questions on this, and I know that people have variable incomes, right? Not everyone has consistent paychecks. So what you can actually do for this is something similar to the 3-month look back for expenses. You can do a 3-month look back of your income, okay, or of your checks. So take 3 months worth of checks, get the average, and as long as you weren't like on vacation for half of it and it doesn't skew the results, right? But if it was like a reasonable 3 months of you working, then you can do that exercise, and then you're expected, just take the average, and if it's lower or higher, you could put that in the actual, and then you could play around with it there. But that's how I would deal with variable income. Also, if possible, let's look at our lowest couple checks that we had in those 3 months, and what if we made a budget that we could only live off those amounts for the month that we got, okay? So let's say you make $1,000 some paycheck and $1,500 another paycheck, okay? So 15 is the highest, 1,000 is the lowest. So let's say, can you live off of 2 paychecks for $1,000? And then if you were to get the extra $500, or if one was $1,300, now you have extra money that you could be putting towards, again, a financial goal, okay? So that's another way to look at it. All right, guys, so here's the debt payment calculator. Now, the first thing you're going to want to do is actually save a copy for yourself, because you won't be able to make any edits in this version. So go to File, make a copy, and you can click on this folder section here and make sure you click on My Drive, select, and then make a copy. It will make a copy in your Google Drive. You can also download this, make sure it's in Excel or this CSV version, or you can just simply email this file to yourself and make sure, again, it's in some sort of spreadsheet form. So now that that's out of the way, let's get right into the file. So you see that I already have some information listed here. This is just an example, okay? But the first steps of what you're going to want to do is get all your debt information, get all the data for it, and track it here. So the creditor type, feel free to enter whatever you want to name your loans. You can name it as simply as, like I have here, car loan, student loan, credit card one, or you can say Visa, Amex, Toyota, whatever the thing is, right? However you're going to remember it, the better. Now, there's only 10 spots here. If you have more than 10, unfortunately, this file does not allow extra line items. The next section here, you're going to want to enter your current balance as of the day that you're entering all this information in. You're going to want to enter the interest rate of each of the loans for the line items and the minimum payments for each of the line items. Now, you'll see here that the current balance is totaling, and for this example, we have $40,000, and the minimum payment totals here to $380. Now, that's the top section and the tracking section, if you will, of this debt payment calculator. And tracking is literally the first step whenever you're trying to do anything in your personal finances. So it's the same with this. Once we get all the information on this sheet, now the fun begins. So let's go to the next section. We go down here to this section here. This monthly payment, this is going to be the amount of money that you're putting towards your debt currently, okay? So in a perfect world, you're putting more money toward your debt than your minimum payment. But just do whatever you're doing right now, or what you've been doing, or sort of an average of what you've been doing, just to get an idea of where you stand. This initial snowball section is the difference between the monthly payment, so $480, minus the minimum payments that you owe toward your debt. So the difference here being $100. And this $100 is going to come in handy later on once we start talking about the strategy. So then we scroll down here to the strategy section, and big picture, this section is essentially taking all the information that we put up top. Okay, so we have our type of loan, we have the balance. And now, since we input more information, it's going to calculate the interest paid, how many months this debt's going to be paid off, and then the approximate date of when it will be paid off. And then down here, you'll see that the interest paid is being totaled. So right now it's $14,000, and we're going to become debt-free in February 2034. So now if we go back up to this strategy box here, there's going to be a few different things that I want to show you real quick, but there's going to be 2 strategies that I want to talk about at the end, and I would recommend either one of those to start with for you. The first strategy that I want to talk about is no snowball, okay? So what this is showing, and why I wanted to put this on here, is this is assuming that you're just making minimum payments towards your debt, and no matter how much you've been paying, it's just assuming, right, in this situation, that you're going to be paying $380 only, and that's it. So let's see what happens down here. And yes, it breaks the spreadsheet, okay? See this NA and this little error message here? That means that the calculation is showing that this is going to take more than 30 years, or the 360 months that we have set up in this file. So I just wanted to show you this, how important putting more money towards your minimum payments actually is, because paying just your minimum payments gets you nowhere. Currently, I'm recording this in September of 2024. So yeah, it's basically going to take you 30 years for $40,000 in debt, okay? So if you're actually serious about paying down your debt and you want to make a change in your life, we have to figure out how to amp up your payments that you have towards your debt. Okay, so that's why I wanted to show you this. Please do not use this strategy. It is not a strategy. The next thing I wanted to show you was I gave you an option here to just look at how this would be paid off based on the order that you entered it in your debt. So I found that a lot of times when if I'm entering something like this, usually the one that's top of mind, or the most important one to me for whatever reason, I put up here. So I wanted to put this ordered in table, and it's, again, just another way to look at the math down here. Every single different strategy will have some sort of different angle to it, or the interest will fluctuate, the debt-free dates will fluctuate. This isn't also really a strategy. I just wanted to put this in here as another way for you to show you how some of the math would work. Then we can go to this custom section. So if we scroll back up to this section that I did not talk about here, custom, this is set up so that the calculator will order your debts based on the values that you have in this custom. So in this case, it's lowest first. So say your student loan is like really just pissing you off. It's on top of your mind. It's really annoying. You just want to get rid of it. So like, all right, I just want to get rid of this first no matter what. And then we'll just go in order. Yeah, 2, 3. And you see everything changing down below, okay? The order's changing. So again, just another way to look at the math. So we go down here and the interest on this one was way higher, just an FYI. But again, it's just, we're just playing around with the math right now, okay? And then the same thing would apply if we did custom highest first. It would just take the complete opposite. So we scroll down here, check out the math. That looks pretty good. Okay, it's best one so far. Okay, so now the two that I want to talk about, I'm going to talk about them sort of simultaneously. Okay, so there's the debt snowball method and there's the debt avalanche method. So first, let's go to the debt snowball method. And the strategy here is we're going to be ranking the order of our loans from smallest amount to largest amount, meaning we're going to prioritize paying off the smallest loan first and then working our way down to the largest loan. So how this works strategically is once this figures out for you which loan is the smallest loan, the next smallest, and the next smallest. Obviously, this is how I set it up. That was not intentional. So we look down the calculator. This is the order that you're going to be paying. So for your student loan and your credit card, since they are not the smallest at the moment, we are just going to make minimum payments towards those loans. That way we are not penalized for paying any less, and we still kind of keep the debt moving. But the power behind this one is not only are we going to be paying the $120 minimum payment for the car loan, but we're also going to be adding this $100 snowball on top of it. So instead of just paying the minimum $120, the $100 is going directly to the car loan. Now we can see here, again, some of the math. So we have $14,000 of interest. The debt-free date is February 2034. The benefit to the snowball method is it's not going to be the best in terms of saving money or saving interest. It's not going to be the most cost-efficient one for you, but what it does is it's going to give you a nice psychological boost because you're putting the smallest loan first. So you're going to see pretty quickly that you can do it and you can pay down the loan and you're going to get a faster win than if you were to just put your largest loan out first and you're trying to like pay that down for years. No, you put your smallest ones out first. You get them out of the way. In this case, if we look at it, so the smallest loan is $5,000. The month to pay it off is 26 months, okay? So just about 2 years. But again, I'm gonna show you how that's gonna change in a second because $480 a month, we're not being that aggressive yet. So these numbers are gonna look awesome in a second. So the next strategy is the debt avalanche method. Now with this one, we're going to prioritize our loans based on highest interest rate first, all the way down to the lowest. Now, the same sort of idea applies where once this calculates the order for you, so in this case, the credit card loan has the highest interest rate and then the car loan and then the student loan. So what we would do in this example is our student loan and our car loan, we would be paying the minimum payment, so the $95 and the $120 towards those, and then the $165 minimum payment for the credit card plus the $100 is going to go to the credit card, okay? So all the extra money goes to the largest interest rate. And the benefit to this one is it will be the most cost-efficient one for you, even if slightly. So we can see here just over $13,000 in interest in December 2033. So if we go back to the snowball method, so remember these totals, right? $13K in December 2033. The snowball was $14K February 2034, so about $800 more of interest, and it'll take about 3 months longer to pay this off. So again, that's why I recommend both of these, okay? Because $800 over a 10-year time frame isn't really that big of a deal, and then 3 extra months at the end of it isn't that big of a deal. But you see what happens here. So with the snowball, the first one's paying off in 26 months, and in avalanche, the first one gets paid off in 56 months. So you have to wait basically 5 years in this example to pay off your first loan, whereas in the snowball method, you wait about 2 years and the first one's paid off, okay? So it's a little better on your psychology and your mental, and debt is more than money, okay? So I wanted to show you this example because I think it's just really important. Now, I mentioned that we could do a little better paying these off, right? Now let's show you the magic of just a little extra money can do to paying down your debt. So we were originally paying $480 a month, but let's say, crazy thought, we could just put an extra $100 towards paying down our debt. So let's put $580 and look at the totals below. So look at the interest, so $14K, and then the debt-free date, February 2034, and we're gonna see what happens with an extra $100. Boom, so we just lost $4,000 of interest. We gained 3 years of our life back being debt free, and that is significant, okay? $4,000 in 3 years just by an extra $100 a month. That's why it's so important to make sure that if you're serious about paying down your debt, that you're also tracking your entire finances and you're creating a budget. Because if you see this and you need to find an extra $100 to save $4,000 in 3 years, you're probably going to want to do that. Let's do the same exercise for the avalanche method. So I'm going to put this back to 480, and I'm going to go to the avalanche method, and then I'm going to go back to 580 just so we can see the change. So the avalanche method was $13,200 and December 2033. Let's see what happens. Boom, similar idea, about $4,000 of interest, and this one was about 2 years becoming debt free. So again, significant differences in money and in time for $100 extra a month. If we could do this example all the way up the ladder, right? So we could just do, what would $1,000 a month do, right? Cuts the interest in half again, and cuts our time by 3 years again. People talk about interest when they're building their wealth, okay? But the same can be said when you're paying down your debt. The faster that you pay it off, the interest goes like that instead of like that. It's a big difference when you're getting rid of it like that. And actually I can show you down here. And yeah, so let me just put this back to 480 and I can just show you this little graph down here. So the red, it represents the interest, okay? So it's just showing you like how your interest is going along this line. There's nothing really to do with this. It's just a visual in case you like visuals and you like to learn with visuals. So now there's one more tab that I want to go through with you, and it's down here. It's called payment schedule. And this could help you with your payments and sort of see how every month is going, because this other page on the calculator, it's more of a summary, but this payment schedule is more granular, and it's going to show you month by month all your activity and how everything happens. Okay, so let's go through it. So this section up here is essentially just a summary of everything that we saw on the last page. And this strategy up here will change depending on what you have in here. So if we go here and we go to the snowball method, right, this changes to the snowball method. And then all of this data changes as well. Let's scroll down here and you'll start to see where all the monthly action is happening. So what this is doing is showing you how much money is going towards each one of the loans every single month. Okay, so we talked about with the debt snowball method, the minimum payments for these are being made, and then we are adding the extra $100 to the car loan. So the car loan in this example was the smallest loan. So I'll just go back to this page so we can see it. Right, we're on the debt snowball, so we're looking at the smallest loan. So the payment schedule tab, right, we're making these minimum payments, we're making this minimum payment, but then the $100 is going towards the car loan because it's the smallest loan. And you could start to see all the months here, and then you could also see when the changeover happens, when we pay off the car loan, and then we go right into the next smallest loan, and this builds because all the extra money is now going to this one, which is the credit card, okay? And you're still making your minimum payments on your student loans, but now the credit card, we're attacking that because that's the next smallest loan in line. A pretty cool feature on this page is this additional section. So let's say at the end of this year, you get a bonus at work. Okay, so let's say you have a $2,000 bonus at work. You put it in this additional section here and you hit enter, and it just recalculates everything. So the extra $2,000 goes into the snowball, which in this example, we want all the money, all the extra money pointed towards the smallest loan, which is the car loan, okay? And you can see what that did here. It obviously sped up this one being paid off sooner, and it's gonna just obviously speed up all of them being paid off sooner. And then we go down here with only one debt left, and we're putting the $480 that we're putting towards our debt towards just the last one until it's paid off. So hopefully this just kind of helps you figure out, okay, I need to track my debt because I don't really know my numbers and I don't know the math behind what I'm actually doing. And that's okay if you haven't done this before, of course, but this spreadsheet is going to tell you everything that you need to know and then some, and it's going to be really helpful. So definitely play around with the monthly payment amounts, definitely play around with the strategies, okay? The snowball or the avalanche are preferred. And then if you combine this with your budget, you can really turn this into a game and see how much I can crank this up and how much money I can put towards my debt. Because at the end of the day, the whole point is to pay as little interest as possible and to become debt-free as soon as possible. All right, guys, welcome into the emergency fund calculator. And the first thing you're gonna wanna do is make a copy of this file because you won't be able to make any edits. So go to this file button here, go to make a copy. You're going to click on this folder here, and you can just click on My Drive, select, and you can make a copy right into your Google Drive, and now you'll be able to save it. Another way is you go back up to File, and you can email this to yourself, email file, and just for file type, make sure you're selecting spreadsheet or Excel. The last option here is you go to download, and again, just make sure you're picking some sort of spreadsheet option like Excel. Now that we got that out of the way, let's start talking about this calculator, okay? As you can see, it's pretty simple. Everything's on one page, and I'm gonna kind of go through what you need to do to fill this out, what all this means in a second, but I wanna talk bigger picture about why emergency funds are so important. The way I like to think about this and tell other people so that they can visualize it is, surely you've played a video game where the main character has a health bar, right? And there's a mission that you're going on, and it's possible that you could reduce your health bar. So beating the level or beating the game, let's think of that as a financial goal for you. So maybe that's paying down debt, maybe that's saving for a house, maybe that's investing for your retirement. And then the health bar of your main character, I want you to think of that as your emergency fund, okay? So everything's going great, you're in the game, you're going through the thing, and then you're starting getting attacked from all over the place. Your health bar is going down, the screen's flashing red, maybe there's some sounds going on. What do you do in that situation? Do you power through and just hope for the best? Do you go run and hide until your health bar can be fixed? What do you do? In most cases, you probably try to stay alive to, keep trudging along, even if that means you're not making forward progress. You don't want to make backwards progress, right? So if you're in the game, you're getting shot at, your health bar goes down, and you just decide to trudging on through, and you die in the game. You have to go back to the last checkpoint, or you go back to the start of the game, okay? And that's exactly what happens if you don't have an emergency fund, similar to how I outlined in the introduction of this video, right? You have a big expense come through, boom, backs you up. You play catch up, you're getting through all the checkpoints again, and then boom, another one, you're going back to the beginning. So what I want you to do is, if you're the main character in this game, get behind that rock, get the med kit, right? Hang out to live another day. Not making forward progress isn't necessarily a bad thing, okay? We just don't want to be making backwards progress. And an emergency fund is going to help you do that with your personal finances. It should be seen as an insurance to your personal finances, right? You want to reach all these financial goals. You want to keep progressing forward. Not having an emergency fund leaves you vulnerable to opportunities to backstep and backtrack and then always feel like you're catching up, okay? And I want you to stop having to do that. So hopefully this will help. So if you've already filled out the budget template, which I would recommend doing first, by the way, you'll notice that this file looks pretty similar, right? And that was intentional, because what I want you to be able to do is take your budgeted items and just shift them over to your emergency fund, because in most cases, most of your expenses are considered high priority items that you should be treating as an emergency expense that you need to live on, okay? So we're gonna dive through that, and we're gonna just start with the fixed expenses, because obviously if emergency comes up, you're still gonna need to pay your mortgage or your rent. You're still gonna need to put your kids into daycare. You're gonna still need to have insurance for your car, right? So you're still gonna need all these things. And let's just pretend that I typed all these out, and ta-da! So here are your fixed expenses totaling $3,350. I think the fixed expenses are pretty self-explanatory, okay? This is like your highest priority needs, and they're amounts that don't really change during the month. So now let's go over to the variable expenses, and this can be a little trickier. Obviously, there's still some critical items on here, like groceries. We still got to eat, right? Utilities, kind of need our lights on, and some sort of form of transportation to and from work or whatever seems pretty important still, right? So again, by the power of technology, let's input some numbers there. Ta-da! Okay, so now we have a total for our variable expenses, about $1,000. Let's move into the financial goals and debt type section. Now, you'll notice with the variable expenses, we have things on here like gifts, dining out, activities, right? And let's be real, if it's a serious emergency, like serious emergency where you are going to be poor or homeless, you're probably going to just cut these out immediately, okay? So you have to be really conscious about what actually is considered an expense. And sure, for the purposes of this exercise, the emergency fund is just sort of to help build up a fund in case you get in trouble with those small minor expenses. But if you have some big life event that changes a lot of things and you need to like cut expenses instantly, I just want you to think about that and what would work well for you personally. But really the goal of this file is just to create an account with a large enough dollar amount in it so that you feel comfortable if God forbid something were to happen, okay? So now let's move over to the financial goals and the debt type. Now, in a perfect world, these two categories for you are treated like expenses, okay? They're monthly expenses that come out of your bank account every month, similar to other expenses, and they're automated, okay? So if you have a financial goal, it's the best practice to automate them so it turns into a monthly expense for you. Same thing with your debt. If you're trying to pay it down faster, don't just wait to the end of the month to see if you have any money left. Make it a priority at the beginning of the month and automate it so the payment goes out. And now instead of focusing on, do I have money for debt? It's, oh, do I have money for some other life things that maybe aren't as important, okay? So I really want you guys to focus on your financial goals, paying down your debt, because this is going to help you just achieve many, many financial goals throughout your life. So the financial goals section, it's things like your emergency fund, retirement, you have other investments, etc. And I'm just going to add my item there. So there we go. I have $125 set aside every month for a kid's education. What I didn't mention before is all of these categories here, you could change them to your preference, okay? Based on whatever you think will fit in your life. I've just put some generic topics in here, and then you have a whole ton of categories that you can utilize, okay? And again, if you've worked on the budget template, you have seen this already, and you've probably finagled it. That's why I set it up, so you could just copy and paste each of these sections over. So let's go to the debt, and we'll just add our recurring debt payments that we're automating from our bank account. And now we are done. So everything is set up. These are our monthly expenses for the most part, right? Maybe there's, plus or minus whatever. This is intended to be more higher level and it's not as granular. So if you're off like plus or minus $100 or $200, it doesn't really matter. This is just to give you an idea and a comfort zone. So once we go through how much money you should be having in there, this is just sort of an exercise to see like what I would need to do to be able to save for my current lifestyle. So now that we have these, right, I mentioned that we have a total down in each of these sections, but nothing's popping up here, right? So that's because we need to add a number here for how many months do you want to save for. Now, if you were to look up online how many months worth of expenses you should have in your emergency fund, every single article seems to just be copied and pasted onto one another. Everyone says, experts say, have 3 to 6 months worth of your expenses for your emergency fund. And ideally, in a perfect world, sure, that sounds amazing. But let's just look at this really quickly. We have about $5,000 here, I think exactly, for your monthly expenses. Now, if you were to save 3 to 6 months worth of expenses, we're talking $15,000 to $30,000. Now, would you feel secure if you had that much money? Yes, of course, but who has that kind of money to just lay out right now and just fund an emergency fund like that, right? So what I like to think of is how much money would I need to cover most big unexpected expenses that would possibly come up, okay? So write down a list even of the things that have happened to you recently within the last year or possibly things that could happen, and just get a number of where you feel comfortable that it would cover most things. And that would be like your starter emergency fund. That's what I want you guys to focus on. Is that number $1,000? Is that number $2,000? Is it $500? Okay, so you know your personal finances better than anyone. So that's what I would recommend the exercise you do for this, because 3 to 6 months of expenses is not reasonable for everyone. It's just not. Most people don't have that kind of money to just have to sit on the side. Like you're using that money to like create other financial goals or pay down debt or like just survive and pay the bills, right? So this section here, how many months do you want to save for? So this is a section that we would want to input, okay? We want to put the number in here. So let's just have some fun just to show you. Here's our 3 months. We hit enter. And then boom, our emergency fund goal, like I mentioned, $15,000 for 3 months if you have $5,000 of expenses, right? So play around with this number. Obviously, yours won't be as clean as 15,000. It's probably going to be a little different, but you play around with this. There's the 30,000. But what about 1 month, right? We know it's $5,000 a month, but then we could also do decimals, right? So what about half a month? Let's say that that's our goal first. Let's say $2,500. I would feel pretty comfortable that most expenses would be falling under that umbrella of $2,500. So we have that amount. We have $2,500. That's our fund goal. Now this section here is how much money do you have currently in an emergency fund? Now, if you have 0, that's okay. We just put 0. This is where we enter that. And then down here, it's going to show us the amount needed to reach the goal. So obviously, if we want $2,500, we have 0 in it, we need $2,500. But this is where so going back to the budget, if you have extra money that you're able to find with the 3-month look back that we talk about in the budget, and you don't have an emergency fund, I know that paying down debt feels like a priority to you or maybe another financial goal, but if you have a $0 emergency fund, just think about all the times that the hundreds of dollars thing has set you back for multiple months.
So basically, here's what's going to happen, right? We set up our emergency fund for $2,500 and we're like, yeah, we're feeling good. We're paying down debt. We're reaching other financial goals. And then that $700 thing hits and it's like, oh, crap. But you know what? I'm prepared for it. We take out $700 from the emergency fund, right? So now our emergency fund's at $1,800 and we continue to pay off our debt. We continue to do the other things because we didn't have to impact those to pay the $700. It just came out of a fund that was sitting over here waiting for some stuff to come up, okay? And then once we're at $1,800, we want to put more money back into it. So maybe we're taking 100 or 200 bucks the next couple months out of our financial goal just to like push this back up, because once you are in the safety, you never want to go back to the start of the level, right? You want to just keep trudging forward. You don't want to have to go to the last checkpoint like, oh my God, it's so far back. I don't want to have to do that whole thing again. I just want to sit behind this rock for a minute and wait for my health bar to go back up, and then we trudge forward. That's why we do this. That's why we create an emergency fund. And then once you're going through it, again, this is only half of a month, right? So obviously to feel even more comfortable, like let's say, I lost my job and it's like, oh my God, like I would need more than $2,500 and pretty quickly, right? And you probably feel like the same thing. So build it to a number that you think would catch most of the things that would ever come up for you. And then slowly build that up over time and get to a point where it's like super comfortable and then it's super duper comfortable, right? And I would start looking at the emergency fund as something that you just need to prioritize if you're at zero.
All right, guys, so this is the net worth tracker. And if you're new to me, my name's Chris. I've been an accountant for 10 years. I created this myself to hopefully help you get a higher level view of your entire personal finances. So the first thing you're going to want to do is actually make a copy of this file because you won't be able to edit it. So there's a couple ways to do this. The first way is you go up to File, you go to Make a Copy. You click on this folder here and it's going to take you to your Google Drive. Okay, so you click My Drive, select, and then you make a copy. The other two ways, so if we go to File here, you can go to Download, and you're just going to want to make sure that this is in a Microsoft Excel or CSV format, or you can email this file to yourself here, and then you just make sure that the file is a spreadsheet file. At its core, the net worth calculator is just going to track two things for you. One, how valuable your stuff is, so your assets, and two, how much money you owe other people, your liabilities. As you can see here, it's a pretty simple file. There's only a few sections where you need to fill out your information. So I just kind of wanted to quickly go through each of them, just quickly explain what they are, and then show you how all of these calculations work and how the file works. The first section here, we're gonna start with assets, is our cash. There's checking, savings, etc., and you know what this means. So let's just fill this out. Let's say you have, you have $5,000 in your checking account, you've got $2,000 in your savings account. Your total cash is $7,000, okay? Cash is very easy to determine. If you have $7,000, it's worth $7,000. The next section we're gonna go over is investments. So this is specifically not retirement investments, and that's down here, so we'll get into that later. This is if you just have like random stocks or whatever through whatever brokerage you use. Like for example, if you have Apple stock or if you have Tesla stock. So for this example, let's just say you have $10,000 in this brokerage account, right? Your total investments. $10,000. If you have cryptocurrency, for example, I would probably put that in this section as well, maybe other investments. And again, this one's pretty easy to determine, right? If you have $10,000 in your brokerage account, it's worth $10,000, okay? The next section is property. And now this is a little trickier to get the actual value of what you have, okay? So this is, let's say you have your primary residence, that would be considered property, or maybe you have your car that's still worth money, that is property that you own, okay? So let's say, for example, you own a home and you've done your research and maybe the average market value is $400,000. So we're gonna put $400,000 there because this asset for you, the market value, is worth $400. Now, you don't own $400,000 unless you've paid off your entire mortgage, right? So we're gonna get into that on the liability side, but we have to put in the market value of the house here. Same thing with your car. You might need to do a little research to see how much my car is actually worth. So let's say your car is worth $10,000, but if you're still paying off the car, again, we're gonna be looking at that in the liabilities because that you don't own $10,000 of the asset. And by the way, all the categories that we've talked about so far, you can change these. They don't have to stick in stone. So if there's something that is not on here that is in your life, feel free to just add it, okay? And use this file for you and whatever's easiest for you. And even if you want to call it something specific, like you could call this primary residence, whatever, right? So however you want to do it, you can adjust these. I just wanted to let you know that. The next section is your retirement account, right? So if you have a 401k, if you have an IRA account, and luckily, again, this one's going to be a little easier. So you just go to your accounts that you have, and let's say you have $50,000 in those accounts, and that's pretty easy to determine how much it's worth, because if you have 50,000, it's worth 50,000. Okay, so we're already done with the asset sides, and as you can see, it's been building up the entire time, and our total assets are worth $477,000. Okay, you can see over here, this net worth is taking our assets minus our liabilities. And right now it's saying our net worth is $477,000. Okay, so obviously we haven't done the liabilities yet, but we're off to a good start. So let's jump into the liabilities. And again, these categories you can change for you however best fits you. I just put in some generic ones that I thought would apply to most people. So auto loans, right? So you have a car worth $10,000, but let's say you still have $2,000 worth of car payments. Okay, so the value of your car for you, for your net worth, is $8,000, 10 minus 2. Okay, credit card debt. Again, this is pretty simple to determine. If you owe $10,000 to your credit card debt, that's a liability for you. You still owe someone $10,000. Let's jump to the mortgages, right? So we already said that our house was worth $400,000, but let's say you still have a mortgage that has $300,000. So for the purposes of this net worth exercise, only $100,000 of your house is positive net worth for you. And then let's just chuck in some student loans. Let's say you've got $20,000 of student loans. So pretty simple. That was our liabilities. It's totaled $332,000. And after we looked at assets minus liabilities, your net worth is $145,000. So obviously the way this file works, if you want your net worth to go up, you increase your assets or decrease your liabilities, or ideally both. Now, green is good with the net worth. Okay, so we're positive 145. Let's just say, I'm going to just put a crazy number here to get this to be negative, and it's going to say that we have a negative net worth of $5,000. So if this is red, this obviously means that you have a negative net worth. But remember, the most important thing is that you're actually tracking this, okay? It's not really about where you're starting today, it's about where you want to go and how you're going to get there and how you can reverse engineer reaching a financial goal. Make sure to check out the other files below, the budget template, debt payment calculator, emergency fund calculator, and let me know down in the comments what your goal is for your net worth in the next 12 months. I will see you in the next one.